Have you ever come across the words of Psalm 1:5, dear reader? They speak with a clarity that pierces the heart. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. Have you ever wondered what God meant with such a firm promise? Or what the story of someone who faced the weight of judgment and found the way to stand in God's presence would look like? Come with me. Let's dive into this story that may warm your soul and reveal what it truly means to live a life that withstands the test of time and divine judgment. The story of Laura. At 55, Laura carried a serenity that seemed to defy the worry lines etched on her face. Sitting on the porch of her modest home in a quiet town, she watched children playing in the street, their laughter echoing like a reminder of lighter days. In her hands was an open Bible, turned to Psalm 1:5. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. The words made her reflect on her life, the mistakes, the losses, but also the grace that had brought her this far. Laura hadn't always been the woman of faith she was now. In her youth, she lived to please others. She grew up in a family where appearances meant everything. A flawless house, elegant clothes, and the perfect smile at social events. Her father, a successful businessman, taught her that success was measured by how others perceived you. Laura took that lesson to heart, working as a manager at a luxury clothing store where she didn't just sell products, she sold an image. She was good at it, so good that at times she sacrificed truth to close a sale or maintain the facade of a perfect life. But at 35, her house of cards collapsed. Laura discovered that her husband, Ricardo, had been unfaithful for years. The divorce was devastating, not just for the end of the marriage, but for the public humiliation. Friends she thought were close pulled away, gossiping about her fall. The worst blow came when the store she worked for was caught in a tax evasion scandal. Though she wasn't directly guilty, she lost her job. Suddenly, the woman who lived for the approval of others found herself alone, directionless, as if the ground beneath her feet had vanished. It was on a rainy afternoon, while sorting boxes in the small apartment she had moved into, that Laura found a Bible that had belonged to her grandmother, Clarice. She opened it randomly to Psalm 1 and read verse 5. The words hit her like thunder. The wicked will not stand in the judgment. A chill ran through her. Had she been living like the wicked, building a life that couldn't withstand the gaze of God? Desperate for answers, she began attending a local church where, unlike her old social circles, people didn't care about appearances. They cared about the heart. The weight of judgment. At church, Laura met Pastor Samuel, a 60-year-old man with kind eyes and a voice that radiated peace. During a Bible study, he explained Psalm 1-5. Judgment, Laura, isn't only about standing before God at the end of life. It's also those moments when life itself confronts us with truth. The wicked, those who live only for themselves, have no roots. When judgment comes, whether it's a crisis, a loss, or an honest look in the mirror, they crumble. Laura sat in silence, feeling the words like a mirror reflecting her own story. The first months in church were a mix of relief and struggle. Laura wanted to change, but her past kept pulling at her. An old colleague, Vanessa, invited her back into the high-end sales world, promising contacts that would put her back on top. The offer was tempting. Laura missed the adrenaline, the glamour, the feeling of being someone, but something held her back. She remembered Psalm 1:5 and Pastor Samuel's words, "The righteous stand because they are planted in God. The wicked do not." Laura declined Vanessa's offer. "That's not who I want to be anymore," she said, with a firmness that even surprised herself. Vanessa laughed, telling her she was throwing away her chance. But for the first time, Laura felt she was choosing something greater, a path that could withstand judgment, whether from people or from God. The congregation of the righteous. Without the glamorous job, Laura had to start over. She found work as a receptionist at a dental clinic. The pay was modest, but the environment was warm and welcoming. There, she met Donna Fatima, a 58-year-old cleaning lady who soon became her friend. Fatima had a simple but deep faith, and the two often spent their breaks talking about life and the Bible. "You know, Laura," Fatima once said, "the congregation of the righteous isn't a club for perfect people. It's where we grow together, with God at the center." Inspired by Fatima, Laura became more involved in the church. She started helping with the women's support group, where many were facing their own struggles, divorce, grief, unemployment. Laura listened to their stories, shared her own, and together they prayed. For the first time in her life, she felt she truly belonged to something real. The congregation of the righteous mentioned in Psalm 1:5 wasn't a place of judgment, but of acceptance, a place where imperfect people sought to live for God. One day, Laura was asked to speak to the group. Nervous, she opened her Bible and read Psalm 1:5 aloud. "I once lived as if everything depended on me," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I built a life that seemed strong, but it collapsed with the first storm. Today, I know that only God makes me stand." The women applauded, not because Laura was perfect, but because she was honest. In that moment, Laura realized she was finally part of the congregation of the righteous, not because she was better than anyone, but because she had chosen to plant herself in God. A new beginning. At 55, Laura didn't have the life she once dreamed of in her youth. There was no mansion, no crowds admiring her, but she had something far more valuable: peace. Her small home, filled with plants she lovingly cared for, reflected her new life. She had adopted a dog named Batata, who accompanied her on evening walks. At work, she became more than just the receptionist. She was the one who offered a smile to nervous patients and listened to their stories. At church, her women's group grew, and she began teaching others how to find strength in God's Word. One evening, while watering her plants, Laura received a call from her daughter, Sophia, who lived in another city. Now 30, Sophia was facing a difficult time at work. "Mum, how do you stay so calm?" she asked. Laura smiled, thinking of Psalm 1:5. "It's not calm, my dear. It's knowing that God holds me steady, even when everything feels like it's falling apart." She sent Sophia a picture of her grandmother's Bible, with the verse underlined, and promised to visit that weekend. Laura realized that her life now had roots. It wasn't perfect, but it was solid. When the winds of judgment, crisis, doubt, temptation blew, she stood firm because she was planted in God. The meaning of Psalm 1:5. Psalm 1:5 continues the contrast from the previous verses, which describe the wicked as chaff blown away by the wind. Here, the psalmist goes further, declaring that the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. This verse is both a warning and a promise. It reveals the fragility of a life without God and the strength of a life rooted in Him. The wicked will not stand in the judgment. Judgment here can refer to the final judgment before God, but also to those pivotal moments in life when truth confronts us. For Laura, judgment came in the form of crises that exposed the fragility of her appearance-based life. The wicked, those who live for themselves without aligning with God's ways, have no foundation to face these moments. Their lives, like chaff, are carried away by the wind. Nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. The congregation of the righteous isn't a group of perfect people, but of those who seek to live according to God's will. Sinners who persist in rejecting God find no place in this space of communion. Laura discovered this when she joined the church, a place where she found support to grow in faith rather than judgment for her past mistakes. This verse invites us to reflect on where we are planted. A life without God is like chaff, light, unstable, unable to endure. But a life rooted in God, though imperfect, finds strength to stand, both in life's judgments and in the fellowship of those who seek Him. Reflection for the heart. Dear reader, have you ever felt the weight of a moment of judgment? Perhaps it was a loss, a betrayal, or the emptiness of realizing that something you trusted had no foundation. Psalm 1:5 calls us to examine our roots. Are we living for what is fleeting, like chaff that the wind carries away? Or are we planting ourselves in God, seeking His truth, His grace? Laura learned the hard way that true strength comes from aligning with God. She found in the congregation of the righteous, not perfect but faithful, a place to grow and remain. You can too. It doesn't matter what's behind you or what has fallen apart. Today is a new day to plant yourself in God, to build a life that withstands judgment and flourishes in fellowship with Him. May you, like Laura, find the peace of knowing that with God you will stand, firm, strong, and part of something eternal.